يا لا 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 يا لا 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 يا لا 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 يا لا يا لا 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 يا لا لا لا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem for Face the Truth. Today we have Dr. Bilal Philips here as our guest. Dr. Bilal Philips is the Chancellor of the Islamic Online University. He's also been a leading part of the Islamic religious establishment for many, many years, ever since even before I was a Muslim myself, and I've been Muslim for 18 years. Additionally, he's got 50 published books that are in the marketplaces. Myself, I've read quite a few of these books, and he is here today. And Dr. Bilal, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. I guess we'll just kind of get right into it because we've got a lot of ground here to cover today. For many people who don't know, this past summer, Dr. Bilal was arrested in the Philippines. It's been stated that he's been banned from many, many countries, including in those countries we have the US, the UK, Australia, and perhaps even the Philippines now. So I would like to ask you, Dr. Bilal, you've been labeled as an ISIS supporter. I'm not sure exactly what the origin of that is, but maybe you know. And in light of all of this, the banning of being banned from so many countries and being called an ISIS supporter, how do you respond to all of this?
Well, it's a mouthful. It's quite a bit to try to tackle, but I think that first and foremost, one needs to know why this continual attempts to discredit me in the media and detain me or ban me from various countries. I mean, what is behind all of this? And fact of the matter is that it all stems back to a case in 1993 in the US where an attempt to bomb the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center at the time, a failed attempt was made, and one of the people who were involved in that attempt happened to know me. So from that circumstance, I was labeled, you know, as a person of interest, and the title unindicted co-conspirator was put on me.
So have you ever been, were you charged with a crime?
Unindicted means no evidence to raise a charge against the person.
So how can you challenge something when you're not indicted, you haven't been charged with a crime, you just are?
That's the game, the name game, that when you use the term unindicted for the mass of people, it just sounds like something very serious. This person is an unindicted. you know, they're not understanding that indicted and unindicted are indicators of whether they have evidence. And then co-conspirator, you know, this comes from basically guilt by association.
Okay, but you've been banned from many countries. I mean, how do you explain that?
Well, the reality is that it's not really many. This term many is constantly being used in the media. Wikipedia is banned from many countries. Well, the fact of the matter is there's over 225 countries in the world. And 4 countries have officially banned me. So what is 4 out of 225? Can we really call that many? But because America is one, basically it means that the influence of America will affect all of the other countries through the Interpol. I mean, what happened to me in the Philippines recently where I was detained, not actually arrested, but detained, it was coming from American sources. Even American agents came from the American embassy to try to speak to me. You know.
Did you speak to them?
No, I didn't speak to them. I spoke with the Canadian representatives. I'm a Canadian. But what do the Americans have to do with me, really? You know. So this is just a continual harassment which is coming from that source because of the efforts that I'm involved in, along with a number of the other leading speakers, people like Dr. Zakir Naik, you know, who is banned from more countries than me, but, you know, is a person known to be very moderate, very, you know, calm in his views, and very mainstream, mainline Islamic.
Are you guys like in competition, like who can get kicked out of the most countries? No, I'm only kidding. You don't have to answer that question. It seems like it though, right? Okay. Dr. Bilal, you've been accused of being an ISIS supporter, a supporter of terrorism. You know, it's been put in a lot of different phrases and different terminologies. So I'm going to ask you point blank. Are you a supporter of terrorism, yes or no?
I am categorically opposed to any form of terrorism. And actually, the hundreds of lectures that I have on YouTube state it in no uncertain terms. You know, unless you take some words of mine out of context, like the British did in their ban, where they said, I'm a supporter of suicide bombing, in a lecture which I gave in 1995, in which I was asked the question, what is the Islamic position on suicide bombing? And I said, on the battlefield in times of war, it might be considered a military tactic and used and is known as suicide missions around the world, etc. But in civilian circumstances, to utilize these means amongst civilians is totally unacceptable Islamically. Now, that statement is clear. But if you just take the piece out of the middle, like the British did, it might be considered a military tactic. Then they say, well, he is a supporter of suicide bombing. You know, what happened in England where they did all this bombing, he's a supporter of it. He said it may be considered a military tactic. Watch. This is the problem. This is where the problem lies. That yes, you can take words out of context and you can create scenarios. But the reality that when you look over the text, the Canadian authorities asked me about this. You know, why in the UK? And I showed them the full transcript, downloaded from YouTube. Here is the full statement that I made, and here's the section which they used. And it was clear to them. They recognized.
Why do you think that you're targeted?
I think basically it is because myself and many of the representatives, spokespersons, speakers, lecturers, etc., in the Islamic awakening of our time, you know, invite Muslims to know Islam and to live Islam, to give precedence to Islam over everything else. So what we're saying is that you should be a Muslim before you are an American, or before you are a Canadian, or a British, Brit, or a German, or whatever. And most of these countries don't like this. The vast majority, because of the concept of nationalism. Nationalism says that you should be American first. You can be anything after that. Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Confucianist, whatever you want. But you must be American first. So when you say that you are Muslim first, it means that you're like a fifth column amongst us. We cannot trust you. If a deal comes down where we have to deal with attacking the Muslims, we can't count on you because you're Muslim first.
Right.
And they don't like that. And that's what you hear echoed by the rulers, the presidents, etc. You know, that we want people to be citizens of this country. They should be, you know, like
Americans
everybody
first.
else. You know, they should be like everybody else. You know, we recognize, yes, you have freedom of religion, all the other things, but we must be, you know, committed. If you don't like America, go somewhere else. You don't like France, go somewhere else. You know, this is the attitude.
I don't know. I find it is relevant, but what we're seeing in America, that there are many young black men who are being gunned down by police officers, no indictment. Even Obama said that, you know, maybe we should finance having cameras on the police uniforms, but we actually had on camera, live in concert, a man being accosted by the police and saying, "I cannot breathe," but we still don't have an indictment. I feel, this is my feeling, that when you take some of these same police officers and you put them in military fatigues and you put them in areas where there is no iPhone or iPad or other cameras that are there and they're present, do we really believe that these people are going to act with more restraint than they do in the streets of Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York? I have my doubts about that.
Of course, and actually all of the reports that are coming back from Iraq and from Afghanistan, wherever the troops have gone, you know, all of the atrocities that were committed there, they're just coming out, you know, more and more as people, you know, reveal and expose. So we can see that this is what is happening. Some heinous crimes were committed in Iraq against the Iraqi people, you know, in Afghanistan against the Afghani people, you know, and elsewhere. So, I mean, the military where people are driven, I mean, they're promoted to kill. This is what it is about, killing. You know, war is killing. You know, the enemy has to be dehumanized. So that's how you can live with it. You know, otherwise you come back with post-traumatic syndrome. You've gone mad. You know, you have to dehumanize these people. You're not killing people. You know, you're killing Muslims. You know, or
so it's something different.
Something else. You know, these are not really human beings like we are. You know, they are opposed to our whole way of life and everything else, whatever. So we're defending our way of life. So all of this propagation which is given, you know, which dehumanizes the enemy and justifies virtually any action that the military does. You know, even when they go into countries, or people have gone into countries, they suspend the laws that, you know, we cannot be prosecuted for what happened in your country. You know, what is that all about?
So then it comes down to a thing of no accountability. I want to move on just a little bit.
But before you move on, you know, the issue, as you said, of ISIS supporter. You know, again, these are things that are just thrown out. You know, other terms they use is a terrorist recruiter. You know, various other terms, you know, or having terrorist links, or these type of terms which are thrown out. When in fact, you know, that case from 1993, you know, 21 years have passed. Surely, if there is a case against me, I'm involved in something, in 21 years, we can't put together some actual facts and say, well, we need to arrest this man?
Well, the realities are this. When you actually have to make a case against someone, it takes effort, it takes proof. But when you just want to make accusations, now this is significantly easier, and you can be tried and convicted in the public forum, and there's no need for any type of legal proceedings or anything of this nature. Well, I understand the situation. I think that there are a lot of people out there who needed clarity from your perspective in terms of what some of these bannings from many countries was about. So I'd like to ask you something else about this ISIS phenomenon that we have that's growing here today. All of it seems to stem from the declaration of the caliphate. The fact that Abu Bakr Baghdadi says that he is the Khalifa, and his group looks at him as the Khalifa. So for Muslims around the world, people want to know, is this the situation? Is he the Khalifa of the Muslims? Why or why not?
Well, basically, for him to claim caliphate without any process, meaning that anyone can pop up anywhere in the world and say, I'm the Khalifa, and they have. I know in Sri Lanka, there was one brother who was a graduate from some of the Islamic universities, had gone off into the bush with his followers and claimed he was the Khalifa.
So this is not the first time?
Not the first time. We have in Pakistan, we've had in India, we've had in Indonesia. So this is not the first time that somebody has claimed and his followers have said, this is the man, here he is now, here's the Khalifa. So we know that from an Islamic perspective, the Khilafah or Caliphate is not established in this way. You know, this is not the methodology for its establishment. If we look at the early generation of caliphs that came about, how they were declared, and then the bay'ah or oath of allegiance was given to them by the leaders of the Muslim community. They all came and gave that bay'ah. Without that bay'ah, the bay'ah is ratification, that you are now ratified as the Khalifa.
They would say that they're people of Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, or people of influence, have given him that mandate. He would say that has already been given to me, so it's a dead issue. I mean, how would you respond to that?
Well, it's not a dead issue because you're not claiming to be like an emir in the sense of just a leader of a region or a group. You're claiming the Khilafah. This is the leadership of Muslims of the world, 1.7 billion Muslims. So to say that you just got your little group of 10, 15 people who you think are the more knowledgeable amongst you, and they have now declared you, and now you're going to speak for the Muslim world, this is a joke. This is falsehood. It's playing on the minds of people, innocent people, who of course, as Muslims, we would all like to see the return of the Khilafah, which is symbolic of the unified Muslim world. It is not symbolic of just a leader of jihad, a leader who will lead a fight. But the symbolism here is of the reunification of the Muslim world, at least to a degree that the rest of the world will come in line. You're talking about a major portion of the Muslim world.
Okay, so if we have to look at it from that backdrop, that he in fact is not the Khalifa, briefly tell us, if and when the Khilafah is restored, what is the process that it would undertake? What would it look like?
Well, the Khilafah would be a structure which would govern the Ummah. It would be governing the Ummah over some area of land. I mean, it is not just a portion of a country or here or there, but a structure which would be the administrative body, of the means of governance for the Muslim world, or that element of the Muslim world.
So if it's going to be a global Khilafah, then there have to be people of influence from around the world who would have to give that Khalifa that mandate, and not necessarily just people in one specific location, like for example in this case in Iraq. Maybe the people in his group and the people in his locale have given him that mandate, but would that extend to the entire Ummah? This is the question.
No, it wouldn't. And even in the area there, can we say that he has been given the mandate by the people of knowledge of that area? No. The people that are around him, the names that are quoted and that are Abu this and Abu that, and nobody knows who they are, the vast majority of them. They're not people of scholarship, of the leadership of the Ummah, that even the Ummah of that area, to say the people, the Ummah of, because he's talking about Iraq and Syria, You've got all kinds of scholarship that existed in Syria, all kinds of scholarship which exists in Iraq. Those people who are the well-known people have not supported him. They have in fact rejected him.
Okay. Now I want to move on.
But you know, I think that, you know, though so much focus is being put on the Khilafah, the issue is not so much the Khilafah. I feel that the issue is finding another bogeyman that we can identify amongst Muslims and keep the Muslim world imbalanced. Because the issues of that region were originally the issues of Syria. Actually, even before that, it was issues of Iraq. During the time of Saddam Hussein, in spite of what he was as a despot and everything else, the place was relatively peaceful. You know, there were fights here and there, but the country was in one piece. They were functioning, they were producing their oil, they were selling, and so on. So, you know, after intervention, supposedly for the weapons of mass destruction, we now have chaos in the country.
Weapons of mass destruction that never showed up.
Well, they did show up. They were the ones dropped by the American and the Union in their attack. This is where all the weapons of mass destruction came. But the point is that the effort, you know, when we look at what is happening in Syria following that, where the terrorism, state terrorism on a massive scale is taking place. How many hundreds of thousands have died from Bashar Assad? And people are hesitating, and should we support, and what if, and arms might fall into the wrong hands, and all this other double talk. You know, red line, if the red line is crossed with the gas, yeah, it got crossed and nothing happened. And, you know, continual just hemming and hawing as people die. And then all of a sudden, this little group pops up, and then everything, this is the whole world is now required to stop this group. This is the biggest danger for the whole of the globe, all countries. This is great exaggeration and a means by which not to come to the aid of the Syrian people, divert the issues now to something else, keep that situation unstable till it will settle in the way we want it to settle.
Okay, so then what about this alliance? Now you've got an alliance that's attacking a group that the scholars of Islam, almost in unison, I would probably say in unison, have said that this organization of ISIS is not what people want them to be. So now you have a situation where this is a group that is condemned, but now we have the alliance who is attacking them. So as Muslims, what is the Islamic position? Should Muslims actually aid and abet the US efforts, the UK efforts to attack ISIS positions in conjunction along with other Islamic groups that are operating there inside of the country? Should they actually be in part and parcel along with them, aid and abet them?
You know, actually, this question is actually a much bigger political question, which can, you know, have repercussions, which I think it's better not to take it from that perspective. You know, if you want to ask a question concerning an individual Muslim, what should he do?
Okay.
You know, in this type of a situation.
So an individual Muslim, he's an individual. He's sitting behind his computer and he's seeing that there's a bombing going on here from the alliance and so on and so forth.
Should he join in the attack against ISIS? I would say his efforts are better spent in trying to bring down the rule of Hafez Assad. This is the position of Turkey. To me, was the best position. Turkey not wanting to get caught up in the fight around ISIS, saying that if we're going to do this, it should be connected with Bashar al-Assad, because that is the biggest problem, and
right.
That's the one which we should focus on. We can deal with that on the way as part of it, but our main focus should be the Syrian regime. I mean, that is the proper approach to that situation there.
So I think all would be in agreement that the Bashar al-Assad regime needs to be dismantled and needs to be done away with. But my question is focusing on the average individual. Should he feel happy or joy when he hears about the alliance bombing of all of these positions? Because I think it's pretty clear that these bombs are not falling only on ISIS positions, but they're falling on other positions. Whether that's purposely, whether it's not purposely, the reality is that they are. So the average individual, how should he look at that?
Well, he should look at it, to me, in the same context that we spoke of earlier, that those bombings really should be focused on the positions of the Assad regime. This is where that deserves to be. To say that at the same time the movement of ISIS, that this should be curtailed, halted, brought into line, or whatever, that's a secondary issue. No, but the major issue and the major focus should be that of the Assad regime.
Okay, excellent. Dr. Bilal, I need to touch on a topic because it continues to come up. I want to talk about the targeting of innocent people. Now, when I say innocent people, I am referring to the average citizens in a country, whether that's America, Canada, Germany, wherever it is, or Saudi Arabia, or Qatar, wherever it is. The average person who's going about his day-to-day affairs, who basically has no say-so in any type of foreign policy or even local policy for that matter. However, they happen to be citizens of a country that is unjustly attacking Muslims and kills innocent Muslim people. Is it Islamically correct that those people in that country can be targeted in an effort to return the favor that was done to Muslims in their country?
Retaliation, yeah.
Retaliation. Would that be considered a just retaliation?
No, it's not a just retaliation. I mean, the verses which say, do unto them as they have done unto you, you know, as they have hit you, as they have hurt you, you may hurt them, and so on. So these have to do on an individual level. This is not on a communal level. It doesn't go beyond the individual. You knock out my eye, we do have the eye for the eye. I have the right that your eye gets knocked out. But you rape my mother, I don't have the right to go rape your mother. You kill my father, I don't have the right to go kill your father. You know, so these acts which go beyond the individual are not acceptable. The fact that the enemy may drop bombs and kill innocent women and children doesn't mean now you can go kill innocent women and children, non-combatants, people in civilian areas, etc. This is not permissible Islamically.
Okay, but then they might come and say, well, look, Dr. Bilal, this is the only language that these people understand.
Regardless, this is not a justification. The Prophet ﷺ did not open that door. In fact, when he saw the innocents, he spoke out against it. So and so shouldn't have been killed. When he saw a dead woman here, or a child, whatever, he spoke against it. He didn't justify it. So this idea of collateral damage, you know, Islamically, there's no justification for it, really, you know. And we don't support in any way, shape, or form sinking to the level of our enemies. Those who may attack us, they may sink to a certain level. They don't have scruples. They don't have moral values which would necessarily stop them from doing certain things. We have those values. I mean, what is Islam but a moral system which governs both spiritual as well as temporal spheres? I mean, the essence of the Islamic message is a moral message. As the Prophet ﷺ had said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect for you the highest of moral character traits. So this is what makes us special, or what we have to offer the world is morality. So if we sink to the same level as our enemies, then we are the same as them.
Dr. Bilal, today there are reports about our 6 Guantanamo detainees who have reached Uruguay. They were detained for 12 years. They were not charged with a crime. 5 years ago, they were cleared for release. And that was only 5 years ago, so that means that they were 7 years in detention without charge, without even being charged with a crime, let alone actually being actually found guilty.
You know, the terrorist is to some degree a relative term, an individual. One man's terrorist might be another man's freedom fighter. You know, one man's terrorist might be another man's interrogator. So the term terrorist, you know, can be put into a variety of different circumstances. And what we know as terrorism occurs not only on the individual level, but also on the state level. So countries might engage in terrorism. You know, whether it was the Nazi, you know, gas chambers. I mean, this was state terrorism, you know, which was participated by a lot of people. You know, the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This was state terrorism. The war was already won. It was not necessary. You know, taking who those people were they fighters, innocent lives, just, you know, eradicated like that. You know, so I mean, you have it on that level where those who are able to control the media, they justify the narrative. They are the ones that now present it as a necessity, you know, collateral damage, you know, they have their double talk to cover it up. But reality is that elements of that exist in most societies.
Dr. Bilal, next time you come, we're going to have to talk a bit more. I know you've got a plane to catch. You've got a lot of things that you want to do. I want to thank you for taking the time out to come to talk to us here today. And this is where we're going to have to leave it. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem, and I am with Dr. Bilal Philips. So that's Bilal versus Bilal, I guess, right? Okay, so thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be seeing you soon, inshallah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.